One of the things that you've heard us talk about several times is Dr. Gill and I and others talk about nutrition and comparing supplements. We oftentimes talking about comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges. And so we talk about comparing supplements, especially on a dollars per pound of nutrient basis. So what we wanted to do today is just take a very quick, very simple example and show you how simple it is to do those mathematical calculations so that we can calculate dollars per pound, in this case, dollars per pound of crude protein. So we've got two examples up here on the board that I just made up, fairly real world prices. We've got whole shell corn at $200 a ton, which is going to have about 10% crude protein on a typical basis, dry matter basis. And then we've got, on the other hand, we've got cottonseed cubes that we put in here at about 40% protein on an as-fed basis. And we got those valued at $340 a ton. So the first thing that we have to do in any of these comparisons is we have to figure out how many pounds of crude protein there are in a given quantity of feed. And so this, in this example, since we have them both on a per ton basis, all you do is you multiply the 10%, multiply 10% times the 2,000 pounds to find out how many pounds of protein there are in a ton of corn. And we find out that if you multiply 10 times 2,000, we find out that there's, in effect, 200 pounds of crude protein per ton of corn. Okay? Okay, to do the same calculations for the cottonseed cubes, we take the 40% crude protein content, multiply that by 2,000 pounds per ton, and we find out that there's 800, in this case, 800 pounds of crude protein per ton of these particular 40% protein cottonseed cubes. And so if we've got then, now we have this, we've got them on the same basis, 200 pounds of protein per ton of corn, 800 pounds of crude protein per ton of cottonseed cubes. So then we take the price. In this case, it's going to work out nicely. $200 per ton divided by the 200 pounds. And we find out that that works out to, in this hypothetical example, essentially $1 per pound of crude protein. Simple enough. So in this case, then we take the $340 per ton divided by the 800 pounds of protein. Find out that comes out to about 42.5 cents per pound of crude protein. So now we can compare those two feeds on an apples to apples basis. If we're looking at protein supplementation, we find out that the protein in corn is costing us $1 a pound. The protein in the cottonseed cubes, in this particular example, 42.5 cents per pound. And you can do that for any nutrient. We did this for protein. You could do it for energy. You could use TDN content. You could do it for the minerals. You can do it for any particular nutrient. But this allows you to identify the primary limiting nutrient for a supplementation program. And then you can go in and compare feeds on a dollars per pound of that nutrient basis to help you make a more economical decision in terms of what will be the most cost-effective supplement to meet that first limiting nutrient. Typically in a range cow operation, protein will oftentimes be the first limiting nutrient. And again, back to that uniqueness of the ruminant animal, we know that as the dietary crude protein level goes below 7%, that animal, the rumen environment and the bacteria are starved for nitrogen. So oftentimes if we can supply supplemental nitrogen in the form of protein, it enhances that bacterial population's ability to grow at maximum rate and therefore help digest that forage at the maximum rate. So oftentimes a small amount of supplemental protein to a protein deficient forage diet will not only boost protein intake, but it boosts energy intake by at the same time increasing overall forage intake for that particular animal.